singer, step off, please.
Second turn supposed to stand together. Second turn supposed to stand together. He said no. Yeah, really? Okay. He said no. Second turn stand together? No, he said not supposed to. Do you know your notes? You'll figure it out. Hannah, just sing really loud. I will sing really loud for you. If anything, I'll let you loud. Oh,
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be.
With earth as our mother, together all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony, Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And let it begin with me.
Thank you very much. These are the choirs from Manchester Central High School. We're very, very pleased to be invited and to perform at your assembly here today. Our next piece is a stirring rendition of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Hope you enjoy it.
oh yeah.
Let
That mic is like so close to my chest.
Thank you very much. We have all the choirs back together again. And veterans, this one's for you, because this is a medley of the 5 Armed Forces medley. I hope you'll raise your hand and be recognized when you hear your song.
First to fight for the rights and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Coast Guard! We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee.
Through howling gale
And shot and shell to win the victory. Semper Paratus is our guide, our pledge, our motto too. We're always ready, do or die. I, Coast Guard, we fight for you. Navy! Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day, 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 day. Through our last night on shore, drink to the foam, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
Air Force!
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun.
here they
Here they come to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spotting our flames from
going to do our patriotic sing-along again. Would you please sing along with? I bet you'll recognize My Country 'Tis of Thee, America the Beautiful, and God Bless America. We would appreciate your lending your voices to our music.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
And if you know this one, feel free to sing this one with us too. Let there be peace on earth.
Let there be peace on earth. I have seen him in the watchfires of a hundred circling camps. They have builded him and altar in the evening tunes and dances. I can reach his righteous sentence in the dim and flattering glance. His train is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. While God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching
Best thing you ever did. Thanks. I could have been some sort of a counselor for senior citizen. You shaped me up. You saw something in me. Thank you. Oh, please. I'd have an arrest warrant by now. You see.
Before the ceremony starts, we'll do the Armed Forces songs once again. So make sure you raise your hand and proudly be recognized for your service as we sing your song.
Just about done, I think. Where good you want to sit in the seats?
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. 2, 3, 4, march! 2, 3, for wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Air Force.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun.
Here they
Here they come to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under. Off
you'd
with
like to tell?
one hell of a roar. We live in fame, we're down in flames, for nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force.
Jake's got to tell him you forgot him. It's back to Hunter. No, it doesn't matter. Okay, all right.
Beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country love and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine till all success be nobleness and every gain divine. America,
Covatus?
Yeah, you pronounced it very good.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Peter St. James from WTPL 1077 in Concord. I have the privilege of being the MC for this evening's event. I'm the MC not because Ray Goulet couldn't find somebody else, or that I had MC'd all 5 of the Welcome Home Vietnam veterans ceremonies in the state for the last 5 years. I'm standing here for one simple reason. 26E-069. Major Gardner Brewer, United States Air Force. My cousin, and a name on that wall. My cousin was a Togo forward air controller assigned to the 20th Tactical Air Support Squadron out of Da Nang. He was returning from a mission in a Cessna, Oscar Deuce Skymaster, when he was shot down by ground fire, Quang Tin Province, South Vietnam. So like many of you, I'm here tonight to remember somebody who was a hero to me. We're at a crucial point in history. Many here can't forget the sacrifice and honor left on the battlefields of Vietnam and brought home. And then there's a generation that has no idea what you're talking about. If it wasn't for Hollywood and a few lines in some history books, they'd know even less. On September 11th, 2001, America's sense of who we were was violated in the most horrific way. America spoke as one for a change after that and said, we will not forget, and we won't. But it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that the lessons learned during and after the Vietnam War are not forgotten either. Because of what you and they did, it helped define America in terms of who we were and who we wanted to be. They were hard lessons to learn, but we did. And know, for your service, their valor, and our freedom, by God, we will not forget. Welcome tonight. It is my privilege at this time to introduce the Chief of Staff to the President from Southern New Hampshire University, Will Zemp. He's the Executive Vice President, Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer. And in that role, Will Zemp is responsible for expanding access to higher education and enhancing the student experience at Southern New Hampshire University through experimentation, joint ventures, strategic investments, introduction of new technologies, and innovation. Will leads the team responsible for developing and implementing strategic initiatives and oversees all aspects of Southern New Hampshire University's innovation agenda. He provides leadership to the 4 departments that make up SNHU's Innovation Center: the Sandbox Collaborative, SNHU's Innovation Lab, the SNHU Project Accelerator, SNHU's Research and Development Department, and SNHU's Incubation and Transition Space. Will is also an adjunct professor in SNHU's School of Business Organizational Leadership program. Before coming to Southern New Hampshire University, Will formerly led Army and joint units at various echelons of command, served as the U.S. Army's Chief of Future Concept Development, and as the NATO Senior Policy Advisor, International Security Forces, Afghanistan. He has held leadership roles in the United States Army, the State Department, and the National Security Staff. Will retired from the U.S. Army as a colonel in 2014 after serving 25 years in public service. He's been operationally deployed to peacekeeping and security operations in Africa, the Caribbean, Balkans, Russia, and Vietnam. He served combat tours in Africa, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Will is the recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military award for heroism. Also a Purple Heart recipient, Will has been recognized by congressional leaders for his committee testimony and leadership in advocating on the issues of traumatic brain injury care and education and employment opportunities for veterans. He's a strategist, leadership coach, and community leader. He still serves as an advisor to leaders in Washington and NATO on national security topics such as the Islamic State, Afghanistan peace process, and technology proliferation. He also provides leadership coaching and counsel on social responsibility to rising professional athletes in the Boston area. Active in the community, he serves as an advisor and coach to a number of youth, academic, and athletic organizations. Really? And you can take the time to come here tonight with everything that you do? It is my pleasure to introduce Will Zemp from Southern New Hampshire University.
I always want to leave after that because it only goes downhill from there. I'm extremely nervous tonight for a lot of reasons. The main reason is because most of the people that are here and to take part and to remember were my heroes growing up. And so it's a tremendous weight, and it's a privilege to be here, and I thank you for the opportunity. So good evening. I'm Will. I don't know where they get that from. But they find it every time. I am on the leadership, and I'm proud to be a veteran on a great day like this. On behalf of our president, Dr. Paul LeBlanc, and our provost, Dr. Patty Lynott, our faculty and staff, our student body, our alumni community, welcome to our campus. Welcome to the Green Space. Thank you for joining us and honoring and welcoming home veterans of the Vietnam War. Special thank you to our state and federal leaders that came tonight. Their presence reflects the value we have for the sacrifice of the names on this wall and the admiration we have for those veterans who served with them. Personal thank you for the monumental effort and the compassion of the men and women of the New Hampshire Chapter 41, the Vietnam Veterans of America. You've given us an opportunity to share this experience and what the wall affords us, and in a unique way of paying our respects to our fellow citizens. Before going on, I'm compelled in my own experience to recognize and welcome Gold Star families, of which I've met 3 so far, of the service members whose names are on the wall behind us, and I'm sure there are many more. If you're not familiar with what a Gold Star family is, we need to take note and become familiar with it. It's a father, a mother, a brother, a sister. It's the family member of a fallen service member. These families have given their country their most sacred possession, their child, their spouse, the husband or wife. And so welcome to you. We're better because of your presence here, and we're in awe of you and your sacrifice. Welcome to SNU. This green space is offered for the time we're here as a temporary hallowed ground, a respectful place where you can reconnect, where you veterans can teach us of what living for something greater than ourselves means, and a place to remember. If you've never had the opportunity to experience the memorial, then you're in for a very powerful experience. My first time was a Boy Scout. I was a Boy Scout troop just coming out of middle school just a year or two after the exhibit opened in 1982. I never really imagined that a name could have such meaning. As a young scout, I stood looking at names, surrounded by spectators, and like everyone else, was quiet in respect. But being young, the personal meaning didn't reach any deeper than the quarter-inch engraving of the letters on the wall. And that would soon change, as it will for you if this is the first time you've experienced it. I've never knew a soldier personally that lost their life in that war. And as the war began to wind down, that's when I was born, and it closed before I went to elementary school. So standing there reading the names would overwhelm anyone. And just the weight under the quantity of the names, and I was a kid, it was hard for me to imagine that each one had an identity and a personality. And after snapping a few pictures, I thought I'd experienced the essence of the memorial, being a dumb kid, and I was ready to move on. And then I saw something that made my heart fall. And what I would see next would give me strength and resolve many years later when I'd have to face the parents and the families of my own soldiers that I lost. There, standing in front of Section 33 in the right half of the wall, was a beautiful young woman. Her spring-colored outfits and white gloves highlighted her against the enormity and the darkness of the wall behind her. It was as if she was in a completely different world. I watched as she reached her gentle hand up and lightly touched the wall in front of her. Slowly, she traced the fingers over the name Frederick, and out of respect, I never mention the last name when I tell this story. She stroked his name with gentleness, purity, as if she'd never felt anything more precious in her life. Closing her eyes, she took a breath, and I think that's what I remember the most was the breathing. And I could see her imagining him in front of her. And she didn't move, as if she was afraid to lose him all over again. Her forehead was now pressed against the name, and openly she was in agony. I felt I could see back the many years they spent together. I could see her smiling at him. I could see him holding her hand long before he left for war. And I could see her sitting at home, barely able to sit still. As she waited to hear news of him, I could see her crying when the knock came on the door, and as she was told he'd been killed. And then, suddenly, awoken from her dream, she opened her eyes and looked at the name one more time, of the one who meant more than anything to her in the world. And she began to cry. As she leaned her head back, and never forget that she said, "I love you, I will always love you." And that's what we have behind us. With that, she stood, wiped her eyes, probably like she'd done many times before. Pure agony. She pressed her lips against her fingers, making sure that her kiss would be felt. And then she touched her name one last time. I was undone. My scout uniform at that, I was 14, was drenched, tears rolled down my side of my face. I'd never guessed that a complete stranger she would have such an effect on me. And by knowing their name from a wall, that's all I knew. In those 20 minutes, I learned more about my life, about myself, than I ever could have in months. I learned what it means to be truly loved by someone. I discovered that some people are cherished so much in life and death that the sight of their name can cause great emotion. I would take this lesson as I commanded troops in the 101st, and I would see this woman's faces and over the 40 families I would have to deliver that news to. Frederick. It's one of 1,000 names we welcome here today. Names that have an impact that went deeper than the depth of the engraved letters of their name on a wall. We welcome the names that affected the fate of their country. We welcome the names that affected the souls of friends. And when you walk the wall here, know that these are the names of heroes. They went when others failed to or were afraid to. We know that these names deserve much more recognition than they receive when they come home. And like this speech, this pales in comparison to what they deserve from us. That the English language fails us, and there's no way that we can put the words together to show our thanks for them and for the other Vietnam veterans that's still here with us. So welcome. Welcome these inspiring people who've been adored by their loved ones. And welcome to our campus and to our Vietnam veterans. Thank you for the gift of your patriotism, and welcome home. Now please join me in paying respect to them and rise and bring our attention to the ROTC detachment that will present our colors. Thank you.
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I'd like to take this opportunity before we have the chaplain do the invocation to thank and acknowledge Manchester Central High School Choir. Wonderful job. This time we'd like to have Jim Daly, chaplain from the New Hampshire State Prison, to provide the invocation.
Almighty God, creator and sustainer of all life, we ask that you bless and may descend upon us as we gather here today. We thank you for this opportunity to once more in freedom assemble in honor for the veterans of our nation's armed forces. May we never forget those who made the supreme sacrifice so as to secure for our nation the blessings of life, liberty, and justice for all. May our observance be a timely reminder that our freedom was purchased at a high cost and should not be taken for granted. Bless the families and their friends and those we honor today, and bless the veterans who have come with memories, stories, and tears to enrich this day. Amen.
At this time, I'd like to, please be seated. At this time, I'd like to ask the Vietnam Veterans Association Chapter 41 Treasurer, Jim Kavadas, to come to the microphone.
I will apologize now, for my emotions are going to get away from me. Bear with me. We stand before this wall and look at the names of all the lives that war took, men and women, fathers and sons, brothers and sisters, each and every one. They raised their hands, they swore to defend, not thinking about how their lives would end in a war in a faraway land. The names of those heroes took their last stand Maybe you know someone on this wall. When you read their names, remember them standing tall. A proud soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine who went to war, who gave their life, who will never again be seen. So we honor them with this wall of beauty, with the names of all who did their duty. And I hope each and every one of them is looking down on us today so they will know we've never forgotten the price they had to pay. They may not have come home alive, but their memories are alive at home. As long as this wall can roam, their memory of them will forever be shown. Thank you.
Great job, Jim. I'd like now to have Russ Laureate make the official welcome from Chapter 41.
Good evening, everybody. First, I would like to thank the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 41, for bringing the American Veterans Traveling Tribute to New Hampshire to all the veterans, their families, and friends, and to everyone else that has come to see the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Traveling Wall. I would also like to thank all the volunteers that have been here to help in so many ways, and to Southern New Hampshire University for allowing the Traveling Wall to be here today. Thank you very much. Today we have the opportunity to not only pause and reflect, but to remember and honor the memory of the over 58,000 men and women who gave so much. The ultimate sacrifice for freedom shall be remembered and honored forever. Let us always remember that they are not just a name on the wall, but someone's loved one. The Vietnam veteran made many of them 18, 19 years old, right out of high school, were everyday people made extraordinary by events beyond their control. They had a deep and abiding love for their country, and they fought to preserve the democracy and freedom. All of us need to be thankful for their unselfish devotion and for their courageous willingness to put their lives on the line. So when you see a Vietnam veteran, please say thank you and welcome home. Remember, Vietnam veterans are brothers who fought without America's support, brothers who returned without America's welcome, brothers who will always be the best America had. Welcome to the Vietnam Veterans Traveling Wall. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
It's my pleasure at this time to introduce my representative in Congress from the 2nd Congressional District of New Hampshire, Congresswoman Annie Kuster.
Thank you very much. Well, the land of the free and the home of the brave, and we're here to commemorate tonight and to say thank you and welcome home to all of you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to Ray Goulet and the 41st chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America. I understand you and your team have worked for 14 months to bring this to you. And if you have not visited the wall in D.C., this is going to be an emotional and very powerful evening for you. Thank you to the Gold Star families who are with us. Each of us has our own personal story. Mine is panel 44E, line 58. And I want to say thank you for helping me to find Tom Saltmarsh from Concord, New Hampshire. He went to school in Concord. He grew up with us. He was my older sister's boyfriend all through high school. So I was young, but he was very special. And I still have this incredible feeling right before he left for Vietnam. He had written a song for her, and he was playing it for all of us on the guitar. He didn't come home, 1968. And I'll never forget the first time seeing his name on the wall in Washington and just breaking down in tears. But now to see him here, to be home in the Granite State, it just makes me fill with pride And I want to thank you, Ray, and for all of you who made this happen. I know there's so many Granite State families that are going to have this experience. And to be able to say finally, thank you for all that you did, and welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. For the Constituent Services Coordinator for United States Senator Maggie Hassan, William Bateson.
Thank you. Senator Hassan couldn't be here this evening, so she's asked me to read this letter on her behalf. Dear friends, I regret that I cannot be there with you in person this evening to mark these opening ceremonies, but I want to join you in honoring the Vietnam veterans of New Hampshire and America. I am sincerely looking forward to my visit to see the wall here tomorrow. This memorial wall stands as a symbol of our nation honoring the courage, sacrifice, and devotion to duty of the men and women who served so that every one of us could have the opportunity to be safe and to be free. By remembering the sacrifices of and expressing our profound respect and gratitude for those who served in the Vietnam War, we continue to honor the memory of the 58,000 men and women whose names are etched into the annals of history. The wall also provides an important opportunity for the families and friends of the heroes that gave their lives in this war to gather and honor their loved ones. I want to thank all of the dedicated service members, veterans, and your families here today for your selfless sacrifices in defense of America and the freedoms we hold so dear. New Hampshire has a proud history of military service that dates back more than 375 years, and your devotion during the Vietnam War has helped continue this legacy of excellence. I also want to thank New Hampshire's Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 41 for providing this opportunity for all of us to visit this stirring memorial. Once again, thank you to all of our veterans, service members, and your families. We owe it to you and to all who serve, or have ever served, to continue to work to make sure that our state and our nation is ever worthy of your sacrifice. May God bless you, the Granite State, and the United States of America. With every good wish, Margaret Wood Hassan, United States Senator.
Next to speak, Sharon Nichols, Constituent Services Representative for 1st District Congresswoman Carol Shea Porter.
Dear friends, thank you to New Hampshire Chapter 41 of the Vietnam Veterans of America for inviting me to speak at today's ceremony for the Veterans Memorial Wall. I regret I cannot be there in person to share this special event with those in attendance. I viewed the wall at UNH and found it incredibly moving. Every American should have the opportunity to see the names of the brave service members we lost during the Vietnam War. Those names have a story of courage and service, a story of bright, promising lives cut short, a story of loved ones who miss and honor them to this day. It is so important to bring this wall to every person possible, to remind them of the sacrifices that were made during this very wrenching time in our nation's history. I urge all Granite Staters to come here to see this important and moving testament to our shared history. Thank you again for your invitation, and I thank all the veterans here today for their service. I'd also like to thank the volunteers who made this project possible, and Southern New Hampshire University for providing a temporary home on its campus for this remarkable memorial. Best wishes, Carol Shea Porter, Member of Congress.
Thank you very much. And now a staff assistant for Senator Jean Shaheen, Arya Thapa.
Thank you. Dear veterans and friends, please accept my heartfelt wishes for the unveiling of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Traveling Wall. I wish I could be with you this evening to honor and pay tribute to the service members who lost their lives in the Vietnam War. I want to pass along my thanks to Southern New Hampshire University for so graciously hosting the traveling wall, as well as many volunteers who made this event possible. Members of our military and their families all accepted and continue to accept the call of a faithful service to this country. As this traveling tribute stops in New Hampshire, we are reminded of our own region's proud tradition of military service and the ultimate sacrifice that many have given in defense of our nation. This time together is an opportunity to acknowledge and honor all those who fought with an unwavering strength of spirit to protect the freedom and liberties that we all enjoy. We will never forget the lives and sacrifices of those we lost. The memory of those brave Americans will endure with the traveling wall as a reminder of our fallen heroes of Vietnam. Thank you all for your service and efforts to make certain that the stories of our soldiers will continue to be told for many years to come. Sincerely, Jean Shaheen, United States Senator.
It's my pleasure now to welcome Jane Hirsch, Director of Scheduling for Governor Chris Sununu.
Good evening. Governor Sununu is very sorry he can't be here this evening, but wanted me to pass along his good wishes and as well as a welcome home and a thank you for your service to all our Vietnam veterans here tonight. The governor was fortunate enough to be able to greet the wall as it came in yesterday, and he was truly impressed by all the work that you all have put into this and the first responders and the Patriot Guard that were there to escort the wall. It was truly an amazing sight. And as the proud daughter of a Vietnam veteran, I too want to say thank you for your service and welcome home. It is hereby known that I, Christopher T. Sununu, Governor of the State of New Hampshire, join with my fellow citizens in recognizing the New Hampshire Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 41, for helping to highlight the significant contributions our servicemen and women made during the Vietnam War. This exhibit of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Traveling Wall is a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made in defense of our country and allies around the world. While decades have passed since the Vietnam War, it is important that a state and as a nation, we recognize the ultimate sacrifice our armed forces make in protection of our lives, liberties, and peace at home. On behalf of the citizens of New Hampshire, I commend the New Hampshire Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 41 for their tireless efforts to recognize the Vietnam veterans and thank them for all they do to raise awareness and support in our communities for our veterans and their families. Signed this, the 5th day of October, 2017, Christopher T. Sununu, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I had a great introduction for our next speaker. It was passionate, it was moving, it was lucid, but then he retired last week, so I said, nah, not happening. It is my pleasure to introduce formerly the Adjutant General of the New Hampshire National Guard, Major General retired and my military mentor, Bill Riddell.
Well, good evening and welcome. Before I start, you know, one of the things that we've seen over and over again from the very first wars of this country is that our men and women have stepped up and said, here I am, send me. I'd like those from the Vietnam War, raise your hands, please. And the Gold Star families from the Vietnam War, please raise your hands. Thank you all for what you did. There's a lot of names on the wall behind us. I want to concentrate on New Hampshire. 227 from New Hampshire are on the wall and were killed in action. But for me, there's 5 that I'll remember until my grave. And why is that? The 3rd Battalion of the 197th New Hampshire Army National Guard deployed in 1968. 2 were killed in action during their time in country. And on August 26, 1969, 5 were killed when their truck hit a landmine. they were heading home. They arrived home just 4 days later, and the mayor called it the saddest day in Manchester. It shocked the state, it shocked the nation. And thanks to Ray and the other Vietnam vets, we remember the 247, the 227, and the 5. And Ray and the committee have actually put a field of flags out there to represent New Hampshire. And just to the right of that, you'll see one for 5. And those were part of my heritage. So people ask, so why did you do the Welcome Home Vietnam Vets? And I said, well, that's my heritage. It was the Vietnam vets that promised no other servicemen or women would be treated the way they were when they came home. And it didn't matter if they came home in one piece, had hidden wounds, or were killed in action. And I apologize to the Vietnam vets and their families for the way this nation treated your warriors. We can never forget. And it's not about politics or competition as far as taking care of our warriors. It's about collaboration, embracing our warriors, helping them fight the wounds that we can see and the wounds that we can't see. And it takes the state of New Hampshire and what I call Fort New Hampshire to make that happen. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Fort New Hampshire, because everyone who has served this nation needs the backing of that fort. May God bless you, the state of New Hampshire, and this great country.
Now you understand why he's my mentor. It's my pleasure now to welcome the keynote speaker, the chairman of the New Hampshire State Veterans Council, Jim Adams.
Thank you very much. One thing I'd like to say before I make my remarks is that for those of you who have been to the 5 events, and we thank you very much, General, and all of the other Guard deployments and the returns, everybody's got to remember that there's one man who's always there, and if he's not there, he's either ill or he can't get it done, and that's Peter St. James. Peter, all the veterans here, thank you very, very much. This is kind of a tough time for me as well. I'm one of the younger Vietnam veterans, and my job was to deal with the human wreckage of war. And it's things that I was asked a year and a half ago by a colonel that I've known a long time, a good dear friend. And he said, Jim, how many lives do you think you may have saved? And I said, I have no idea. I can only remember the ones that I couldn't. And this wall behind us is a very moving, of course it's called the moving wall, but it's both figuratively and literally the moving wall. When you see people in Washington have the opportunity to go to this wall and, as the first speaker mentioned, to touch the name of a loved one, it brings it all back. And many of my fellow veterans, many of the fellows that I have come to know in the Chapter 41, many of them have a hard time doing this. So as I mentioned, and it's been mentioned 3 or 4 times, the New Hampshire National Guard put on 5 welcome home events for the Vietnam veterans. They were required to do 1. The next 4 days, these events that we're seeing here, they are to honor those brave men and women who gave up all of their tomorrows so we could enjoy today. And the word men and women, there are 8 women on this wall. They were nurses. And I think in my line of work as a young airman, sailor, Marine, or soldier was about to lose his fight to stay alive, they're usually looking for their mother or some other individual important in their family. And those nurses, we used to call them our angels of mercy. Their soft voice, taking that young man's hand and letting him slip quietly from the bonds of earth. Those women were definitely angels, and I am convinced that these 8 nurses are at the hand of God where they are now. They just were extraordinary in what they were able to do. Vietnam, as the general just mentioned, was a very divisive war. It was tough for the veterans coming home, and the airports and other stuff. Nothing like you see today. It was people would move away as if you had some sort of a disease. And the sad part is that a lot of folks say the Vietnam veterans lost the Vietnam War. That did not happen. Every major battle, every time the United States Armed Forces had a pitched battle, they won strategically and tactically. The problem is that we lost the battle at home. Once the first Tet Offensive made the American people say we can't continue to have these type of losses, and it finally ended. But there are others who say that the folks who were on that wall, they die for nothing, and nothing could be further from the truth. Those brave men and women in combat, in places where you don't even want to think about late at night, those individuals, in the end, they fought for one another. They'd never let their fellow man down. I've been told by a very good friend that he was close to General Hal Moore. And some of you remember he was the commanding officer of the Battle of Landing LC X-Ray. And in this battle, he lost 151 of his troopers. And for years and years after his retirement, he would go there 2 or 3 times a year to the part of the wall that had the 151 names of his men and sit there and chat with them and tell them, well, this happened today. And he was just never able to let go of his people. That's what this wall brings out in everyone. Whether it's a family member, whether it was a brother, a sister, it is just outstanding that Ray and the rest of Chapter 41 were able to bring this here, because I know some people that are coming here in the next 3 days will never probably have a chance to come again. And I think that I would be very remiss if I didn't remember the Gold Star families. And as Lincoln wrote, we must never forget those who placed the ultimate sacrifice at the altar of freedom. And we also must remember that lives remembered are never lost. So as you look at that wall, remember that there's 1,000 stories of the bravery and those men and women, what they did for their fellow man. And if people are still not convinced, they need to go to the Vietnamese community. They have a wonderful temple at the end of Auburn Street in Manchester. And to see these little angels singing God Bless America, 3rd and 4th generation Vietnamese, whose parents and great-grandparents came over on the boats from Vietnam. They were the reason we saved so many lives that felt that freedom and democracy were the most important thing in the world. So please remember the reverence of the wall, but for the rest of the week, this should be a very moving ceremony, and we thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you and this wonderful country.
Thank you, Jim. As we start to draw this evening to a conclusion, some of you sitting down may not see this. I'm going to direct your attention over here because Chapter 41 members are going to now do a commemorative wreath laying, and they're going to be accompanied by the Hibernian Pipers. At this time, while you're all standing, I'd like to ask Chaplain Jim Daly for the closing prayer.
Lord God, we give you thanks for the opportunity we have had to meet together as fellow veterans who have served our beloved nation. We thank you for the times of fun and companionship we have enjoyed. Now, as we are about to leave one another, we would remember those who are not with us on this day. Be with those who are in despair and those who are lonely. Comfort and strengthen them with your presence. Inspire us, O Lord, to continue to seek peace in our world, peace with compassion and justice. And may we be ever ready to serve others and to serve you, even as we have served our nation. Amen.
Thank you to Chapter 41, and thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.